I've known Bradley John Geiger for the better part of 25 years, and I just found out a little something about Brad Geiger that I've never known, which is because I have shared many a meal with you, but I'm realizing, Brad, that maybe 99.99% of the meals that I've shared with you have been at a prepared restaurant where it's plated before it comes to us. But when Brad Geiger has the choice to plate his own food, would you like to describe for everyone what the situation is on that plate?
Well, listen, the food doesn't touch rule isn't like a neurosis or anything. It's got some nuance to it. But, you know, like if the potatoes are touching the steak, that's not a big deal. But wet foods touching, that's got to be watched. You don't want wet foods touching each other. That's ridiculous. So I do have a little bit of, I pay a little attention to what food is touching on my plate. That's all. Just a little attention.
So you would describe this mania as I pay attention to what's going on my plate. That's the way you would describe this.
I take umbrage with the word mania. I take umbrage. But I will say one of the nicest things my in-laws ever gave us, which was right when we were first married, is, you know, those sectioned plates that they use at cafeterias?
For like little kids?
Or like the Swanson TV dinners and stuff, they've got the little sections. They gave us a set of those, but they were in porcelain. Like they were actual plates that you could reuse and wash and everything. And they had the little sections in it. And I love those things.
Oh my God. So no, hold on. Now, I love that you're portraying this like, oh, it's a cafeteria plate.
Yeah.
Those are the plates that you give a 3-year-old, Brad. That's what that plate is.
They also use them. Perfectly burly adult men use them all the time for Swanson TV dinners and when they're eating at cafeterias. They're there for portion.
What cafeteria? Wait, pause. What cafeteria has portion break plates?
Our high school, where a lot of the football players ate out of those portion plates all the time.
You're saying like institutional cafeterias, not like mom and pop diners.
Another word I'm taking umbrage with. It's not institutional. It's just, but at certain places where they have an appreciation for food management. They have sectioned plates, and we had a whole set of them in porcelain. We still have them in the basement somewhere. They're fantastic.
Well, okay, so they're in the basement. They're not actively in use.
They're not in active use, no.
So you are now using what I probably assume is a standard round plate that has no sectioning, Brad.
No.
So the food at any point could drift over and touch another food, Brad.
They could if I didn't know how to use, and you'll be thrilled about this, a ramekin. Because if I've got food that's going to drift and get wet, like broth or
how
juice,
dare you bring ramekins into
that's
this?
That's what the good Lord invented ramekins for, is for food management, so you don't have these touching issues with the wet food.
Long-time listeners of the show will know that I'm a huge fan of the ramekin, and Brad Geiger is using this weapon against me as I try to make fun of him. So, okay, I want to get behind. Also, long-time listeners of the show will know that Brad is a big proponent of the why behind the what. You have to ask the why behind what you're doing and what's happening and why you're proceeding the way you are. So let me ask you the why behind the what. Why does it bother you if certain foods touch? If they're going to be touching in your stomach, Brad, mere seconds later.
My grandparents used to say that all the time, and it's physically disgusting to say that. That's ridiculous. Nobody wants to think about the food after you've eaten it and swallowed it. That doesn't count. That's done. It's done food. The thing is, I don't like it. It's 90% of my food issues are texture issues. I don't like texture. I don't like those tastes missing. I don't like anything about that. It's a texture issue 100% with me.
Okay, so now we've asked the why behind the what. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You delineated earlier on that certain foods, like a steak, could gently touch a potato.
Right.
It could gently touch a potato.
Nobody's upset about this.
Nobody's hurt.
No.
Nobody's hurt. Nobody's crying.
No.
But Brad, could the peas touch, say, a curry? If there's a little bit of curry sauce and the curry sauce is headed towards the peas, Brad. What do we do?
I'll tell you, the minute those peas enter the house, I'm going to another house. Peas are vile. I won't touch the. Absolutely no. There's no peas anywhere because those are squishy and disgusting. I won't. I'll be across the street looking for DoorDash or GoPuff. Those peas walk in the house. I walk out.
Okay, we're learning a lot about Brad Geiger today. So peas, hold on. I didn't realize it when I accidentally stumbled on. So peas specifically have a texture issue.
Vile.
Okay, so wait, no, hold on. We're unlocking entirely new doors in the dungeons of Brad Geiger's mind. What other foods, Brad, trigger this texture issue that I did not previously know about? Hold on.
There's not actually that many. There's not that many that I actually don't like. Squash when it's all mashed up. Like my wife makes an amazing roast squash, delicious. But the way I was introduced to squash was it was all mashed up and then boiled until it was unrecognizable. And so for the longest time, I couldn't touch squash. That was revolting. But there's just a few foods that are like that I just don't like. So
there's a squish factor I'm noticing.
Yes.
Peas are intrinsically too squishy.
Yeah.
Squash, if prepared wrong, if not maybe perhaps sliced, if you mash it up, squash is gross.
Yes.
Mashed potatoes?
Love
Does that
mashed potatoes.
Wait,
delicious.
What happened?
Delicious.
So hold on. How did this? That's a similar food to a smashed
delicious,
squash.
But the consistency is much more. It's a much more uniform consistency. It's delicious.
Let's drill down on this mashed potatoes. But now there's a gravy on top of it.
Love gravy.
Wait, you love a gravy?
You can't eat mashed potatoes without gravy.
Okay, rice, but with a curry on top of it. What's going on there?
Love it. Delicious.
Love it. Okay, so what foods can't touch? What foods can't touch?
The curry is supposed to touch the rice. It's supposed to happen.
None of this makes a goddamn lick of sense.
Hold on. The corn is not supposed to touch the mashed potatoes.
Wait, corn specifically?
Corn? Oh, yeah. Wet corn juice. It's wet and disgusting, and then it seeps into the mashed potatoes. That is an unwarranted touch. That you do not want those two touching. Curry and rice, it's supposed to happen. The corn is supposed to stand alone.
Oh my God. Well, now that we've learned about the unwarranted touch, let me tell you about a warranted touch and say, hello, my friends, and welcome to an absolutely mind-boggling Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And listen, good boundaries are important. That's all I'm saying is I just enforce boundaries and making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
I love how the other adults in your life looked at you and said, you know what he needs is a goddamn plate for 3-year-olds. That's what he needs.
And he appreciated it.
Yeah, and he appreciated it. I'm his friend Dave Kellett, the cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's hour of comics advice, it even had a little portion for like the dessert right in the middle. It was so nice. It was so nice for the little brownie. Of
course it did.
Is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. I almost don't want to keep digging on this because I feel like I would learn too much about Brad Geiger and food. Now I have a lot of questions about what... I want to find out the whole variety of what can't touch, what's allowed to touch, what's the triggering event of why that touch is a bad touch.
Yeah.
This is fascinating to me. I mean, my brother-in-law has something similar.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law has a certain tactility where, for whatever reason, unspooled cotton, he can't touch. Like if it's a cotton wad or a cotton ball. You know the stuff that they put sometimes at the top of Tylenol containers?
Cotton batting, yeah.
Yeah, what is it? Unbattened cotton?
Cotton batting, I think they call it.
Cotton batting. So when it's loose cotton, he tactile-wise cannot touch it. So he had this incredibly bad headache, couldn't get to his Tylenol, Brad. He's like, he passes me his Tylenol. He's like, please, for the love of God, will you take this cotton out of here? And I'm like, you're a grown-ass man. Just take the cotton out. He's like, I can't. So I feel like this is a little bit of a version. Like, and listen, we all have our weird things. I have certain tactile things that I can't touch that just freak me out. But I'm fascinated, and I both love and hate this for you, that this happens with food for you. But gang, we've got a fantastic show for you. Brad and I have gone over the topics beforehand, and I'm really excited about this one. But Bradley, what is our first topic you want to jump into today for the show?
This one came in from our Patreon backer, Jay, who says, Comics of Uncles. Hopefully this isn't too forward, but why haven't you started the new comics you've been dancing around? You guys have mentioned other projects. Why not take the leap in the new year? Cowboys and Kaiju could be a Sunday run on Sheldon, couldn't it? So, Dave, the question is, how come we're not doing more?
Well, first of all, to this question asker, to hell with you. No, I'm just kidding. No, it is, I suppose, from an outsider looking in, it's a totally fair question because Brad and I, we have this skill set, Brad. It's not for lack of tools or talent. We have what it would take to do these extra projects that we've mentioned. And so from an outsider looking in, they're like, you've got a hammer, you've got the nails. Why aren't you nailing these two boards together? Yeah. And I think a version of that answer is, well, there's a couple different answers for me on this one. So right now I do Drive. I'm on year 15 or so. Sheldon, I'm on year 25 or 26 or so. Comic Lab, we're on 9 years. We're in our 9th year. Wrong Way, we're a year into that one. So those are the 4 projects that I'm either actively or semi-actively doing. And in addition to that, in any given year, I'm doing 1 to 2 Kickstarters for a book, and the Patreon and all the outreach to readers that I do, and the fulfillment for shipping and this and that. And so I think it's a time issue, Brad, but also I think some of these projects are... I haven't yet locked them down in my head. They haven't solidified yet in the sense that you can have a nascent idea for years before you suddenly have the lightning strike and you go, now I know how to activate it. Now I know how to take action on it. Now I know how to do it. Yeah. But I think the larger truth is, Brad, until my kids are in college and then out of the house, I don't know that I'm going to have the time to do more than I'm doing right now. Yeah. What is your answer to this question, Brad?
I took this question seriously, and I was like, okay, how come I'm not doing more? And so I wrote down all of the things that I do in a given week, and the list went on for like 3 pages. Right, when you actually read
like 20 of them, just so people have an idea. Because I believe that you actually wrote this out.
Write and draw Evil Ink. Write and draw Evil Ink After Dark. And before I go further, it's not as if I do each of these in each week, but over the course of a month, I've got to do these things at least once or twice a week. You know what I'm saying? So it all averages out.
Right,
Evil Ink, some of the headline stuff.
No, I know what you mean. For example, like
week.
Drive, some weeks I will do 2 or 3 drives. Some weeks I'll do none.
Exactly.
But it averages out.
So it averages out to once a week. So Evil Ink, full page of After Dark, usually 1 or 2 commissions for my Patreon backers. Some of those commissions involve a microfiction where I do like an extended narration that tells a little story. On Mondays, I like to post a single panel bonus cartoon for my Patreon backers. I've started writing short stories for my Patreon backers between 1,000 and 5,000 words. Each one of those things need to be prepped and uploaded to Patreon and the different places I put them. That includes things like titles, descriptions, read-in text, maybe a little conversation starter, alt text, if I'm going to put it on Blue Sky. Now we've got to go into Patreon management, like doing Patreon collections, managing storefronts, Itch.io, Drive-Thru Comics, WeChange, KDP, my own site. I plan between 60 and 80 posts on Blue Sky per week. Many of those, if not all of them, require alt text. Posting daily on Reddit now, along with monitoring the first hour engagement. Then there's the Evil Ink newsletter. There's the Comic Lab newsletter. There's the Uncensored Artist newsletter. Usually 3 posts on webcomics.com. Then there's this podcast. That's about an hour and a half at the very least in terms of recording.
But then we also have a lot of nonsense of like a half an hour of discussing what we're going to discuss before it. And,
So it's at the least an hour and a half. Usually it's 3 or 4 hours, right? Then there's the administration of Comic Lab, assembling the questions and so forth, writing show notes, uploading, prepping both the public-facing episodes and the Patreon exclusive ones. Every now and again, there's a comics consultation. There's efforts that I do for Spice Rack. Then, like you said, I'm either planning or managing or fulfilling a Kickstarter. Something goes upside down with WordPress. I'm on top of that. Prepping files. How much time do you spend on file prep for the vertical scroll for desktop, assembling those vertical scroll into e-comics? Now you've got to make sure they're the right file formats, resolution, all that time. All that stuff takes time. Tracking links, analytics, and I'm a husband. And I'm a father, and I'm a human being that at the end of the day would like to take a little bit of time and catch his breath. The reason I'm not doing another project is I literally don't have a spare minute. I've kind of maxed myself out into what I'm actually capable of doing well on a repeated basis in any given week.
Yeah. I a little bit feel like the best description for a successful web cartoonist that manages their own business is that old metaphor of a duck on water. That above water, it looks very still and happy and cute. And that's the intentional image we are presenting to the public. Mm-hmm. But underneath the water, the feet are madly going, trying to move the duck along, So I tend not to talk about all the stuff and Brad doesn't tend to talk about all the stuff that has to go on behind the scenes. Like, for example, a huge chunk of my week this week, I'm doing tax stuff because I'm doing it early. Yeah. Brad knows that normally in February-ish, I'm miserable to talk to because I'm like knee deep in tax stuff. I happen to be doing it early this year. Hooray. However, it's eating up my week. Yep. And again, another thing that I don't tend to talk about, I'm at the moment in life, and it will come for all of us at some point, where I am that generation that's both taking care of the people younger than me, but also, and I don't tend to talk about this publicly, taking care of the generation that's above me, and they're having health problems, and they live across the street, and it's a lot. And that takes its toll on my life. And so I do genuinely feel, and you won't hear me talk about this publicly a lot, but in about 5 years or so, you'll see a renaissance of Dave Kellett doing more projects and more interesting projects and one-offs and stuff that I've had on the back burner for a long time, both because the generation below me doesn't need my help, and sadly, probably because the generation above me won't need my help anymore. Right. You know what I mean? And so, and that'll last, once I get to that period, that'll last about 10 years. And then you'll probably see Dave Kellett about 15 years from now slow down himself. You know what I mean? Like my output will probably slow down again as well, but for my own health reasons. So I'm just being real about that. But as far as why I don't do more right now, trust me, there are projects that I would love to do right now, would love to do them. And I have often thought, do I hire my way to more productivity by either hiring other artists to draw a project that I would write, or projects that would write a project that I would draw, or hire more assistants for this or that task-specific thing that I would need, And so I've thought about that and haven't done it because I sort of like the balance that I have at the moment in my life, which is precarious at times. But when you hire more people, you also hire more problems and more mental load of having to worry about what do I need to get them? How am I the logjam for what they need to do? What do I need to communicate with them for this or that? Like it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. It requires human interaction, which for me as an ambivert sometimes can be taxing emotionally, So, so there's no immediate solution, Brad, is what I'm saying. But for me, I feel like, to answer the question asker's question, I absolutely do have more projects that I want to be working on. And my spidey sense is in about 5 years, I'll be able to tackle a little bit more than I currently am because of familial responsibilities. Yeah. And for Brad, I think it's probably actually kind of a similar question or answer. Maybe. A little bit.
one of the most common topics that we get asked to talk about is actually one of the top two is time management and work-life balance. People want to hear us talk about those two topics all the time. Questions either coming down in terms of talk about time management or talk about work-life balance. And the reason I'm not doing more is because I'm really good at the first and I'm pretty sensitive on the second. And I could potentially take on another project, but it would not be so good for my work-life management. And it wouldn't be so good for my time management either, right? My balance would be thrown up, my time management. And there's one thing I've learned, not only through my own personal life, but watching people around me, is how really damaging it can be to take on too much. In other words,
oh God, yes.
Brad
and I were talking about this right before the show. Yes.
That whole list that I went through did not all get thrown together in a day. It was stuff that I took on a little bit more, and then I was able to handle that. I took on a little bit more. I was able to handle that. And every new thing that I've done, it was with an eye towards, can I replicate this on a regular basis? And sometimes I guess wrong, and I'll start a project that kind of fizzles and it goes out, and then you don't hear from me in terms of that project again. But for the most part, I'm very keenly aware of how dangerous it can be to start and to get distracted. Like here's the thing. I'm doing Evil Ink After Dark commissions and those single panel cartoons creatively very, very regularly, right? Those are weekly repeated things, if not monthly. Now, if I take on another creative project, I risk throwing those four things that I built my monthly Patreon revenue on. I risk throwing those out of whack for something that might not be a very good earner for me. Doing Evil Ink is proven to earn me money. Doing After Dark, proven to earn me money. The commissions, proven. The single panel cartoons, proven. If I start getting distracted and take on more stuff, just to do more stuff, just for the very sake of doing more stuff, what's going to happen? All those administrative things that I just listed are going to start piling up and get ignored. Great example. Somebody just joined my Patreon. I had a Patreon walkthrough that a new Patreon backer can watch on YouTube to see how to get all the stuff that they've done. It's 8 years old. Okay. The interface doesn't even look. And he's like, hey, not for nothing, this needs to be updated. And I'm like, yes, I know.
Yes, I am aware.
Keenly aware of this. It's on my list. The problem is, and you can't say this publicly, it's very low on my list because there's things that are much more important that keep pushing it down on the list. I'm keenly aware that needs to happen. If I take even more things, particularly creative things, then those things get pushed even further down. And already, just as out of the fact that I'm just one guy, already there's a lot of stuff that I look at when I'm doing my annual year-end review, saying, you could have done that better. You really let that slide. You should have done this. There's no excuse for an 8-year-old walk-on video, a walkthrough video for onboarding people. There's just no way you can take on more.
Yeah.
As much as I'd like to, if I followed this question asker's a suggestion and took on another project, I'd be looking for a day job pretty soon because this thing that I built would fall apart and then I wouldn't have any money coming in. I'd literally ruin my business by getting distracted by this stuff.
Well, so that it doesn't sound like bragging, let me talk about Brad's career and all the things he does so that you can understand this. I will say it like this. Brad could take on more, but let's step back and look at this. he has made his current workload, which is a lot. It's more than I take on a week-to-week basis, I think. And he has made it work for 25 years. So the first thing you have to say to yourself is like, all the web cartoonists that stopped, all the web cartoonists that took on too much and bit off more than they could chew, all the cartoonists that took on too little and it didn't make enough money, so they had to go get a day job, all the cartoonists that took on too much administratively and it killed their creativity, or all the cartoonists that took on too much creatively and didn't take on enough administratively such that the income didn't come in.
Yeah.
There is a balance, what I'm getting at, to be struck in Brad's career. And he has found a balance that works. So on some level, you just have to accept that, like, or not accept, you have to applaud that, holy shit, it's working. And it's worked for 25 years. And he has figured out a way to balance it. And I see Brad Geiger's career as a friend looking on, much like those artists, and this is going to sound jokey, but it's not, much like those artists that stack round river rocks. Have you ever seen those, Brad? They're like a tower, and then they take this really artful photo of these really stacked, and it's like 30 rocks up, and it's all round river rocks, and they're all stacked.
Yeah, I love the stacked photos. Yeah,
and God, you caught me off guard with that, you rat bastard. Of course he loves the stacked photos. Anyway, what I'm getting at, though, is that it's 25 years he's been slowly going, can I put one more stone on there? Okay, it worked.
Yeah.
But at any given time, you put on too much and that whole stack falls apart. So it's actually a balance of how much can I do creatively? How much can I do administratively?
Right.
How does that ruin the balance if I put on too much one way or the other? But I have to do both to keep this career going in sort of like making stuff and then making money from stuff.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, from an outsider looking in, Brad has found a balance, and it's very precarious at any given year. And you don't see that because, again, to mix metaphors, from the public-facing thing, he's that still duck on the water. But underneath the water, he's like, taxes, book fulfillment, got to interact with printers, got to figure out how to onboard new Patreon folks. God, I'm telling you that's what you see behind the scenes week to week. But he doesn't put that out to the public because he is an entertainer, and his job is to make other people's lives better. So I guess what I'm saying is ultimately it's a balance, and you got to step back and be like, holy shit, he's done it for 25 years and he has struck that balance, In
a certain way, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, if I could find out a way to do less, there are times that sounds very, very appealing to me. If there was sometimes to do a little bit less and have a little bit more time to myself to stare off into space and drool and do nothing. There are some times that doing less sounds a little bit more attractive than doing more because of what you're talking about, because it's been 25 years of being the duck who's madly paddling underneath the surface.
Right.
I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not looking to take on a new project. I'd almost like to see towards doing a little bit less and relaxing a little bit more, if I'm being completely honest.
No, I mean, if I were to hire again, and here's the thing. I'm going to say this from the outset. I don't think I would ever hire for this position. But if I were to hire again, in addition to Beth, my wonderful assistant, I might hire like an office manager that handled administrative and project flow, such that Beth and I could focus on the creative aspect. I mean, the administration is the least favorite part of what Beth and I have to do on a day-to-day and a week-to-week and a month-to-month basis. We do it because we have to do it, but shit falls through the cracks and we mess up stuff because we're brains that kind of think more left brain than right brain thinking. And so sometimes administrative stuff, tax stuff, this, that falls through the cracks. But I will say this, having to do the managerial stuff, it's good for my brain because it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me aware of what's happening in my business in a way that if I hired out to handle that stuff, in time, it would come to bite me in the ass. And I can think of 20 ways it would bite me in the ass eventually. But so in a way, this balance that Brad and I have found, it works because it works. And so we're not going to, again, mixing my metaphors, it's a very precarious balance. We have found a way to make it work. Brad continually and I continually keep our head on a swivel for new things that we could gently add to the pile to see if it upsets our workflow. It doesn't? Okay, good. We'll add it in. Right. Or we add it to the pile. Does it work? No. Okay, we'll take it out. It's not working. So anytime we bring on a new project, boy, that's a much bigger disturbance to our workflow and our work week. Yeah. And that requires a lot more planning, foresight, and thought of like, can I take this on?
Yeah. No, I'm in the same place. And the other part is, Dave, I think about that every now and again, bringing somebody in to do the administration stuff. But the problem is I'd never trust that person.
Oh, me neither. That's my fundamental problem.
You'd be watching over their back every minute of the day.
It's only because I'm doing, like I said before, I was doing tax stuff. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But I would never completely 100% trust somebody doing the financials for me. I would rather me make a $100 to $1,000 tax mistake than have somebody have access to my books and or my checks and make a $10,000 to $100,000 mistake. Do you know what I mean, Brad?
Yeah. 100 times as much. Yeah.
Yeah. So and this was sort of a lesson learned out of pain. I had a couple friends in their 20s sort of strike it rich from creative projects and pass it off to agents or managers or administrative heads. And oh boy, it bit them in the ass. And I learned kind of early on watching them, like, no, the best way to do it, I have my own personality. The best way to do it is keep an eye on it. However imperfectly I might do it, keep an eye on it, you know?
100%. Finding somebody you can trust in this whole thing that we do is so important. And it's part of the reason I'm so thrilled that Huion is sponsoring the Comic Lab show.
Look at that transition. First of all, let's just acknowledge that transition. Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, once again, that's the other thing. I don't have time to do all this other stuff because I'm too busy thinking up these amazing transitions. But in all seriousness, when I think about the demands of everything that I just got done listing, when I talk about my workflow, finding a tool that fits into that workflow is really important. And Huion in 2025 was a big part of that. And it's part of the reason, Dave, that you and I are so excited that they're sponsoring Comic Lab.
Absolutely. It's also just such a perfect marriage because they offer the exact kind of thing that webcomics need in terms of tools and the kind of tools that help their workflow day in, day out, keep it going, keep it moving, and at a price point that's honestly bonkers amazing. Yeah. I've said this before on the show is that whenever it comes time to to buy a new drawing instrument, I've always been like, well, here goes $1,500 to $2,000 out the window. And then you look at Huion's prices and you're like, how are they doing this? This is amazing. Yeah. These prices are amazing. They're literally a quarter of what you're paying for other stuff. And I got to tell you, the one thing that, Brad, I haven't talked about on the show yet, I don't think, is that the 13-inch, this is the third generation Huion canvas that I've been using, has these buttons on the side that no previous drawing tablet that I've used before has had this. We've seen this kind of thing before on what are the non-screen ones called, Brad? They're not tablets.
Oh, but they're like little remote controls and stuff. I forget what the words for them, but like you got to have it in your other hand.
You got to have it in your other hand. But honestly, having it on the 13-inch has been a game changer for me. It's got two spinners, one that I assign for zoom in, zoom out, one that I assign for brush size, zoom in. Honestly, Brad, for workflow, it is a game changer because it's right there whenever you need it. It is physically impossible to miss, and it is super easy to use. I flippin' love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've heard me say in the past, I've got the 22 Plus at my home studio. And the thing I really love about that is it's got that anti-glare screen. That is a big, you don't realize what a big difference that makes.
Well, because you've got that giant studio light above you too that hits. You've said in the past that sucker hits your drawing screen and be like, "Bwong."
Yeah, for a while I had to turn the overhead lights off because it was such a problem. Then I switched to the Huion, and you know what it is? The only distracting glares that you're going to get using a Huion is from your friends who wish that they were working on one too. Those are the only distracting glares I've ever gotten.
Well, I will say this. If you are interested in jumping in on the Huion, Brad and I have links in the show notes for the 22-inch, the 13-inch third generation, or the Huion Note, which is also amazing for note-taking, sketching, and digitally capturing ideas. All three are available in the show notes, or you could head over to comiclabshop.com, and that'll take you right over to Huion, but it's HUION.com, and we give a huge shout out to them for sponsoring the show. Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
So, Dave, let's talk about another question that's come in, and I got a feeling we're going to be talking about this for a while. This one goes to the heart of writing, particularly all kinds of writing, but I think this has some real interesting ramifications for humor writing. And it goes like this. What do you do when you find out that the comic is confusing readers? How many confused readers does it take before you decide, hey, this might actually not be working? And what actions do you take? What should comics creators keep in mind, both in story and in gag comics, to ensure that they aren't leaving readers behind? Famously, Gary Larson's Cow Tools comic confused readers around the world. So seemingly, it can happen to anyone. Thanks in advance. So, Dave, let's talk about the bane of any comic creator's existence. You hear confused reactions from your readers. And I don't get it, or I don't understand this. How do you deal with that? And is it a sign that you need to do some real work on your comic to avoid that in the future?
So this is a really good question, first of all, because it gets to the heart of self-editing and course correcting over the course of your career based on feedback and input from every previous comic that you do. You do a thing, you put it out there, you get feedback, you course correct, you put the next thing out, you put it out there, you get feedback, you course correct again. And ideally, what's happening over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 years is that you were honing your writing skills and honing your ability to communicate those writing skills to people in a way that lands with the majority of people. And I say the majority because, Brad, in 25 years of cartooning, I don't know that I put out a single cartoon that didn't confuse one person somehow, somewhere. That's not even necessarily on me. Somehow somebody was confused by the best comic I ever produced. You know what I mean? Yep. Like a comic that literally got to the front page of Reddit, not the front of our comics, the front page of Reddit and the top of Reddit. You could scroll down 50 comments, 100 comments, 200 comments down, and there'd be one person going, I don't get it. And you're like, you dingus, there's 100 million other people that loved it. Why do you not get I mean, it's the fundamental nature of humanity. We're always coming at things from subjective viewpoints. But having said that, the question asker is right that there is a tipping point somewhere, and it's ephemeral, between one person going, I don't get it, and a bunch of people going, I don't get it. And the trick in self-editing is to pay attention in a way that listens to your readers, as Brad always says, but doesn't listen to that reader. And it is a nuanced reaction. You will kind of, it's much like that Supreme Court ruling on pornography. You'll know it when you see it. If 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 50 people are all having a reaction that's similar online, you go, noted. What went wrong here? How did I fail on the exposition of this setup, on the buildup of pressure in this joke, or in the execution of the punchline? How did I fail that I left a considerable portion of my readership behind? And so that is a moment of asking a question. But before I go on too long, Brad, how do you react to this question?
Well, my problem with this is that I've got about 4 or 5 distinct thoughts on this topic. They're all in direct opposition to each other, and I am 100% that each one of them is right.
So much like corn touching mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
they're each valid on their own, but Brad, they might not work well together.
This would be a good time for my brain to have little sections that I could keep things separate in, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Can someone? Hold on, I'm going to run off to yell off to the side. Can someone bring Brad a little section 3-year-old plate?
Yes,
a little plate
please.
For 3-year-olds.
But when it comes to this, I always think about that metaphor of the motorcycle jumper jumping across a big chasm from one side of the cliff to the other.
The Evil
right?
Knievel. Okay, yeah.
And to make something land, and this works for humor as well as any other type of writing, but the wider that chasm, the more satisfying it is when that motorcyclist actually lands.
Sure.
Number one. Sure. Nobody wants to see a motorcyclist just leap over a small little 1-inch chasm, right? It's more impressive, more satisfying. And to make that happen, 2 things have to happen. You as a writer have to build a really strong ramp for that motorcyclist to jump off of. That you have 100% control over that.
So that's you as a cartoonist, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
On the other side, each one of your individual readers has their own receiving ramp. And that's all built with the stuff of their life experiences, their understanding, their vocabulary, right? And that motorcyclist, no matter how well you did with the launching ramp, some of those people are not going to have a receiving ramp for that. They're just not going to.
What a great visual metaphor. Sorry, yeah. I'm really enjoying this. Keep going.
So you're successful, obviously, when you have a higher rate of motorcyclists landing on the other side of the chasm, but you're never going to get 100% because, for example, I could write a brilliant joke about any number of topics. That I could write a brilliant joke about, the corn touching the mashed potatoes. But if you don't have that thing in your head that's revulsed by that idea of corn touching mashed potatoes, your motorcycle isn't going to land on your side.
Right. If your subjective lived experience is that food is okay to touch one another, you're not going to get that Brad's a little weirdo about this with his corn and his mashed potatoes.
And let's take that even further. And we've seen so many comics, and the one I'm always going to use is XKCD, right? Because it's written for a very specific audience that is not me. Right? Half the stuff I look at and I'm like, I can tell there's something going on there, but I am not, like an algebra nerd or an astrophysics nerd, or I don't have the background where that really lands for me. Doesn't mean it's not a perfectly good comic for that audience. It just means I don't have the receiving ramp in that one particular case, right? So on one hand, you take an I don't get it and you say, okay, that person didn't have the receiving ramp for that.
And sometimes you can tell, I'm just going to pause you right there. Sometimes you can tell based on the way they comment on it, the way they say I didn't get it, that like, oh, this just didn't fit with your lived experience or your learned abilities with English or your insight into how I'm playing with words here, or how, because you can see it on the reaction of other people that they 100% got it. They knew what you were going with. So yes, Brad, sometimes your ability to spot it is they tip their hand too much, if you know what I mean, in the way they comment on it. And you can tell right away, this is just their negativity about this punchline is just them. It's not a universal, And at the same time, and here's where my conflicting point of view is going to come into play. At the same time, you can't discount that entirely, because maybe if you had built a better launching ramp, it would have landed anyway, right? If you had launched that motorcyclist
a little bit differently, improved that launch in a certain way. That might have found a different way to land on the other side of the chasm, right? So on one hand, you can't get too upset about an I don't get it. On the other hand, you have to be very, very cognizant of those responses, because if you're getting those a lot, it might be an indication that you have some improving to do when it comes to building ramps and judging chasms, right? The thing I really, really want to warn you against is that whole Gary Larson thing that our question asker wrote, because this is where I see somebody who's letting themselves off the hook. This is where I start to think, this guy maybe needs to work on it, because when you let yourself off the hook so easily, as this person did, it's an indication that it might be happening so often that they're missing chances to improve. And I'll tell you what I mean.
Right.
You point to Gary Larson's cow tools and you say, well, Gary Larson confused the whole world, so maybe it happens to everybody. Well, okay,
wink,
pal.
wonk, yeah.
Gary Larson also wrote several thousands of comics that hit like a Mack truck. You can't, until you have that kind of success rate, you can't say, well, Gary Larson, wop, wop. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's dangerous to say, well, I guess it happens. No. You get to say that when you've done 1,000, just bangaroos. Then you can say that. You can't say that until then.
It's the exact opposite of, Brad, when a moron does something, a consistently significant moron eventually does something right, and you go, well, a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
Yes.
The opposite is true with cow tools, which is that you have a certifiable, best-selling genius cartoonist that made one, whiff at the plate in terms of, striking out with cow tools. You can't then point to that and go with shrug shoulders. Well, everybody does it. I guess we all mess up, as though that's an excuse to not try to work harder and to be more insightful in your own work. So I want to just co-sign what Brad is saying, is that don't let yourself fall into the fallacy of well, it happens to everybody. Yes, it does happen to everybody, but that is not an excuse to not be continuously critical and continuously focusing your editorial eye on what's working and what's not working in your own work.
I'll tell you exactly what happens inside my head. And you can take this for what it is, but I swear by it. Every time I get feedback that a reader didn't get a punchline that I wrote, two things happen. One,
I know what one of them is going to be.
Well, okay, three things. After I get done yelling and screaming and throwing things, one, I discount that immediately and I go back to work. Number two, I take that comment very seriously and I look and try to see how I could have fixed things. And I do both of those things. I take it incredibly seriously and I take it not seriously all at the same time.
True. That is very true. Right? That is very true. And I'll tell you why. That's 100% true with me. It's a delicate balance of constantly wanting to get better,
Yes.
But also having an awareness that I need to practice a certain amount of ego protection, or else the internet will destroy me.
Yeah.
So, and I'm being quite sincere about that. You have to be careful to protect yourself and always maintain a certain attitude of, well, they're idiots.
Right.
These people don't get me. But you have to balance that out with the counterbalancing thought of maybe I'm the idiot. All right, well, maybe I need to work a little harder. Maybe you know what? Maybe I dropped the ball there. And it's a delicate balance, and but it's sincere, and it actually does happen.
And the reason that works is because almost every time both of those things are true. Almost every time it was something that was good. It was something that I did that was good, and it was a good punchline, and this person was just a doofus for not getting it. That was 100% true. And it was true that I could have written that better. There was probably something that if I would have paid more attention to building my off-ramp, right, in terms of managing expectations in the first panel, establishing the subject matter in the first panel, doing correct attention and release, the word use, all of those things, there were probably ways that I could have improved that so that I had a lot fewer people saying, I don't get it. That was 100% true. And both of those things, it's the least important thing in the world, and it's the most important thing in the world, are absolutely true. And it's only by acknowledging that, in my opinion, you slowly, painfully slow in my experience, start to become a little bit better creative person. Because you've got to actually take that feedback in two separate ways at the exact same time.
Yep, you do. And it is a balance of humility and ego.
Yes.
And I think both Brad and I will self-admit that we have huge egos about our talent, and at the same time, huge insecurities and humility about our talent and our continuing growth path. It's like a tightrope walker where, I don't know, what are the poles that tightrope walkers hold where they're really long? They're like 40 feet long.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think they just call them poles.
You probably. But like on that pole, and the reason I'm going for this visual metaphor, on that pole, you can imagine your hugely strong ego on one end of the pole and your humility on the other end of the pole. And the reason why I say this is Brad and I continue 25 years in to walk this tightrope of like balancing our ego with our humility. Ego too much. Oh, humility too much. But the reason why I'm using this visual metaphor is I have seen hundreds of cartoonists fall off the rope because either their ego was too strong or their humility was too strong. So one was they didn't take any feedback, and the other one was they took way too much feedback, and they changed who they were and what they wrote and how they wrote. So it is a balancing act, and this is true of art writ large, not just comic strips, is that art is a conversation, much like stand-up comedy is a conversation, but it's a different kind of conversation between a comedian and an audience. And you have to take the feedback, both good and bad, and filter it through your own artistic lens and say, what of this feedback do I want to take in and change my work, and what can be ignored and thrown out wholesale? And part of your artistic process is both developing your own internal editorial eye for your own work, and part of it is developing an editorial eye for the feedback that you get, and what is nonsense and what is valid, and what is just someone taking a shot on you because it's the internet, and what is someone saying, hey, I really do love your work. This specific one is not landing for me. And when you get 100 of those in a row, you go, okay, I got to work on that. And then when you decide to take action, incorporating that feedback into tomorrow's comic or tomorrow's page. And so it is but it is a delicate process, and it's imperfect, and it at times is at loggerheads with itself. It's really interesting. I mean, really, this is the fundamental nature of what it is to communicate as an artist to an audience.
At the end of the day, the only way that you can really judge your own work is years and years later when you're in a completely different headspace. You completely forgot what was on your mind when you wrote that, or what the ancillary items were that were orbiting your experience, and really look at what you've done and see what works and what doesn't. And you'll see that you probably had a lot of stuff that you needed to fix, right? But that's also okay. What I found just for myself, and this happens not only for like writing, but drawing and things like social media outreach, things that you and I pay so much attention to in a given week. We can't just experience any of those things anymore, at least not in comics. Instead, when we're looking at a comic, we're like, I wouldn't have drawn it that way. I would have drawn this over here. I made a mistake with the word balloon there. Oh, why do you always do this thing? And then when you're in the writing, you're like, nah, that was bad word use. You shouldn't use that word. And you can't really appreciate anything because pretty soon, and this is part of it too, you are analyzing everything that you're experiencing. Why did they post this thing on Blue Sky this way? Why did they say, come read my free webcomic? Why don't they understand swig? Why don't they say why it's good? It doesn't matter that it's free. Tell them why it's good. And you can't just experience anything because you're so busy. You've gotten into the mindset of continually analyzing and looking for improvement. And it's not that I'm a grumpy person, because I'm definitely a grumpy person, but after 25 years, I can't read anything without analyzing it and trying to see how to make it better, or better yet, and this happens plenty of times too, seeing, oh gosh, that was a brilliant decision. I would have never thought of that, and I need to try and replicate that in my own work sometime. What a great success that was. I need to pay attention to that because, wow, that worked tremendously, right? Part of this whole thing, this whole life that we're talking about, is when you replicate, when you've done that so many times that you don't even read comics anymore so much as you analyze them, then you'll know you're well on your way to, I don't know, either becoming a much better cartoonist or well on your way to being crazy. One of those things is true.
It's funny because I don't know why I want to jump in on the parable of do you remember the biblical parable of the master that gives the gold?
Yeah.
And do you remember like the 5 bags of gold that turns into 10, the 2 bags of gold, and the one that buries it? And a part of me, the part of me that's thinking about this is the artists that face criticism or face the internet, and they decide the best way to handle this is to stop producing or to go Emily Dickinson on this and just not share it anymore. Is that part of the process of being an artist? And I just want to emphasize and underline this, is the communication aspect of it, of that you are sharing with people. And this process of imperfectly getting feedback, saying this one I understood, this one I didn't understand, this one landed for me, or this one I absolutely understood, but it wasn't funny. Yeah. That's part of the process. That's part of the deal. And so you're trying to turn your current 5 bags of gold into 10 bags of gold.
Yeah.
And if you decide that this imperfect feedback is going to stop you, I've seen more than a few artists do that early in their career, and I just don't want that to happen.
Right.
Like when a reader comes to you and says, I'm confused, yes, to Brad's point, part of it is the motorcycle ramp that they built wasn't receptive for it.
Right.
But part of it is a continuously joyous reaction as an artist to being like, darn it, I was close. How can I make this a little bit better? Yep. And the joy of that, and finding over the years you're getting better and better, and like Brad said, looking back on the work and finding that, oh, I was close and I thought I was nailing it then, but now I see with a couple of word changes it could have been a little bit better, or a slightly different panel layout could have been a little bit better. I don't know. I feel like that's part of what we're all signing up for, and it's joy-filled too. I don't want to make this seem like, oh, it's all negative. Like, that to me is part of the fun of this, is that keeping in mind that we're entertainers and storytellers and joke tellers, we want to get better at this communication. Yeah. And this feedback is the critical part of it. So I guess what I'm saying is don't shy away from it just because sometimes it's going to sting. I don't know. Is that me being too Pollyanna-ish about this, Brad? I don't know.
This is about communication. This whole thing that we do is about communication. And unfortunately, our weekly hour of communication is at the point where I have to say that you've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend, famed connoisseur of foods that are allowed to do what they will in a way that they will, my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com. By the way, don't let those two websites touch. Don't let them touch. If you have ramekins at home, you want to put those websites in separate ramekins. He's also the co-host of the fantastic new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my close personal friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of SheldonComics.com and Drive at DriveComic.com, and another handsome co-host along with our good friend Kevin McShane of the drawing show WrongWayShow.com.
And Comic Lab's theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode and every episode was edited by the ever wonderful, ever whimsical, ever wacky, and that one doesn't work, Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, and it's too late, we already know that you do. You've been listening this far. You can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It takes you about 2 seconds, and it makes Dave smile so beautifully. You may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify. Dave, how many people have been reaching out to us on social media telling us that we were the top podcast they listened to over on Spotify when they got their Spotify Unwrapped? It's been so great to see.
Oh, the year-end review? Yeah, it was fun when people send that along. It's really cool. Thank you for everybody for that. And I will say Comic Lab is made possible by your support on comiclab.com or over at Patreon. But here's the thing. Here's the thing we don't say a lot. You will also benefit from jumping in over at patreon.com/comiclab, because not only do we have pro tips and insights and an entirely second podcast that you can jump in, of which there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes now.
Yeah.
But the community on Patreon for Comic Lab is beyond the par. It's fantastic. And it is a great community of sharing pro tips among pros, pro-ams, amateurs, the whole run, the whole gamut. Brad and I are there all day long, commenting on back and forth with readers. You got to jump in. Patreon.com/comiclab. So I will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/ just don't let the corn touch the mashed potatoes. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Are you telling me, remember when Kentucky Fried Chicken had that thing where they put everything in a bucket? It was like,
no, that was disgusting.
Like eating out of a trough.
Universally, that was pig slop and disgusting. And I don't understand how they got away with that culturally. Does that still exist, by the way, or did they pull that off the market?
I can't tell you the last time I ate at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'll be honest with you. It was not my thing. But
I'll tell you, the last time I ate at Kentucky Fried Chicken, I got E. coli 2 times in a row, and I was like, I'm done.
Really?
I'm never going back. No, food poisoning twice in a row. 100% traceable to Kentucky Fried Chicken. I was like, to hell with this. Yeah. So now that they're going to sue me off that. But that food trough thing, Brad, was disgusting. I don't know how they got away with that.
Yeah, I couldn't eat like that. I remember back in the day, somebody brought that into the house. I think we were up in Michigan visiting family. Somebody brought that into the house, and I literally had to excuse myself. It was giving me like that kind of a reaction.
Oh wow.
No, I can't do that.
Well, let me ask you one final question before we close out the show. Okay, so let's say some of the corn drifts over to touch the potato. What do you do legitimately as a grown-ass man?
Listen, I'm a grown man. Number one, half of this is prevention. You don't let that happen in the first place. But if it does, you separate them again. You separate them again. Maybe there's a little section of mashed potatoes you just leave on your plate because it's saturated.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. Do you not even eat them? Do you isolate it like a bit of rotten apple?
No,
and you don't?
I don't put anything in my mouth that I wouldn't like. I don't. No.
Wow.
It's just you just shave a little bit off. That's a small price to pay for just not being disgusted by what you're eating.
You are committed to this bit. I didn't realize that there is food left on the table at the end because it touched one another.
Listen, take a good look at me. Does it look like I'm leaving a whole lot of food on the table?
No, but I mean, this.
You could have paused before your answer.